Okay, we're live.
Leading with E.
Yeah, be prophets tonight.
Oh, Matthew, you need to set higher goals.
You know how much sodium's in that? You know how much sodium's in that? That's like the worst.
Well, you know, I asked my doctor about that, and he said, through my test and the amount of sweat and the fact that I drink almost a gallon and a half of water a day, he said, don't lose as much salt as you want. I thought it might be. It's danger close.
Yeah. Yeah. Mayor had to step out of the. Good evening. Mayor had to step out of the room for a moment, but we will go ahead as it's 5 o'clock and we're up against the 6 o'clock commission meeting and start the budget work session at this time.
Oh. If it's okay with the commission, Susan's going to start off with discussing the mill levy impact.
Okay, so before you have a lot of paperwork. I didn't really do anything to the budget document because we have so many unresolved conversations. I've had at least 3 of the commissioners contact me with different ideas. So I really feel like we need to talk about some of those things here at the table. In your packet, you have a sheet titled Bourbon County Assessed Valuation Comparison 2021 versus 2022. I didn't have enough time to break it down by the city of Fort Scott, but this gives you a pretty good idea what's going on in our community. And it shows you a home that's valued 0 to 50,000, 50,000 to 100,000, 100,000 to 200,000, and anything above 200,000. So you can kind of see where the money is coming into play as far as our assessed valuations. In the last year, we've had 146 homes that we've lost that are valued 0 to 50,000, but we've gained 81 in the 100 to 200,000 range, and also 57 in the 200 plus range. So our assessed valuations are increasing significantly in those areas. But what I want to draw your attention to is the amount of properties that we have in the $0 to $50,000 category. And in 2021, it was 54% of the homes. And then in 2022, it was 52%. And part of that is because we had 146 drop off. But my point here, I think I'm trying to make, is that we are high poverty. The value of our homes are very low. Or the shape of our homes are in poor condition. Maybe that's a better way to put it. We are starting to slowly gain some of the nicer homes, but those are probably out in the county. I think if we were to look at this in just the city limits, we would see these numbers look a little bit different. So, and I will try and get a report on just in the city limits for the discussion, but I wanted you to kind of keep this in the back of your mind that where is the new money coming from? And it's from those higher assessed valued homes. So that's just more so for your information. The next one, there is one that's called What is the Mill Levy? And that is really just an informative document that tells you how to calculate the mill levy and assessed valuation and how you get down to what it costs a property owner. The next page is some calculations that I put together so that you understand what the impact is to a resident. And so as you're looking through this document, I'm going to go down the page this way. On the left-hand side is residential. Anything in yellow is residential. Anything in blue is commercial. So residential is taxed at 11.5% versus commercial being 25%. So definitely a difference in what your property tax will be. So if the commission were to stay levy flat and valuation flat, so that means my $100,000 home doesn't increase in any assessed valuation. So this is going to be very individual. So depending on someone's home, it's going to determine whether their assessed valuation went up or went down or stayed flat. So let's say that their levy flat, valuation flat, there's no impact to the property owner. Okay. Let's say their property tax went up, or their assessed valuation went up $2,000. So now their home is valued at $102,000. The impact, which is about, I think, a 2%, does that sound right? 2% increase. The value that would generate in property tax is $44 per year. Okay. And if you break that down, I wanted to say, I don't think I have that in front of me. Let me pull this up on the screen so I can give you a little bit more information on that. I should have had these all pulled up, sorry. So per month, the cost would be $3.70 to the property owner if you kept the levy flat, but their assessed valuation increased on a $100,000 home, just by a 2% increase. I went through on the second set over here, and if every taxing body were to do the revenue neutral rate, so that means we would do what the state has calculated, and I put in all the taxing entities, R&Rs. A person could save, if the R&R and the valuation stayed flat, they could save $77 per year. If
Well,
the
that's for commercial properties, right?
No, this is for residential.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so if their property assessed valuation went up $102,000, 2%, then the R&R, if it's used and there's that increased valuation of $2,000, they would save $35. So the whole point behind the R&R is to try and, it's not to capture the revenue that you would see in an increase in assessed valuation. Okay? So when we really get to talking about the city of Fort Scott, and actually any taxing authority here in Bourbon County, your only new revenue coming into any taxing entity comes from assessed valuation, unless you have sales tax. And the city of Fort Scott is pretty much the only one that has sales tax that can be used not as a dedicated tax. Okay? The county, theirs is dedicated, so it has to be used for roads and it has to be used for the jail or county buildings. Here you've got a little bit more fluid numbers in your revenue because you have a general sales tax. But for everybody else, and that's kind of why I'm making this point, is for the school district to get new money, they have to take advantage of those assessed valuation increases. And with the cost of goods going up, fuel cost increases, raises for employees or insurance costs going up, that's where those dollars come from, is that new revenue coming in. If you don't do that, then you have to cut services. It's one or the other. Sometimes you can take advantage of the sales tax, but the sales tax is not, it can go up and down. So if you were to have a bad year, there's a good chance that you could be cutting people, you know. So it's better to kind of work around your mill levy and your assessed valuations, is my point. So that kind of gives you an idea of how a mill levy impacts a person individually on their property per year. The other thing that we talked about last week was utility costs and whether or not we should do the $10 infrastructure fee in both the water and the sewer. We're already doing it in sewer. So I did some quick calculations on what it would be to generate the same amount of money for a property owner by doing a mill levy increase versus the $10 assessed fee every month. and it's about 7 mills. And the impact to the property owner is like $10 per year
With the mill levy.
with the mill levy. So that just kind of gives you a perspective of the mill levy versus an infrastructure fee on the water bill of $10 per month. Okay. And that's hard to kind of grasp, but you have to understand how the mill levy is calculated. 1 mill generates $49,000, roughly. Yeah. The other thing that we talked about was a $100,000 transfer from the water fund to the general fund. That was a conversation that kept coming up. We have built in a 5% increase for employees. And then most every fund has a good cash balance except for the general fund. And it kind of goes up and down. We would like to see about 1.2 to 1.3 million in that fund, but it's been a long time since we've seen that. And then the discussion of revenue neutral versus levy flat. So those are the things that I feel like we really need to discuss tonight. I've tried to put together some information, and we can kind of refer to those items as we go through the discussions tonight. But I think it's important to kind of understand how assessed valuation works versus fees. Yeah. Okay. The only other thing that I added to the packet is on the second sheet of this is I just went through and did what it cost a residential family of 6, residential family of 3, and based on the number of gallons. And these are true bills that we billed out just in August. A commercial government user versus a commercial user that has 80,000 gallons of use. I didn't do rural water. I didn't get into that because they have several accounts. And then I also put definitions of how we do our water, sewer, and stormwater billings. So just more for reference, not necessarily anything that we're going to focus on, but I wanted you to understand how much it cost an individual, maybe with a family of 6 or a family of 3. Let's see, what else? I also did just some real quick comparisons to Nevada versus Pittsburgh versus Iola versus Garnett. And we are lower than all of those areas. And so they're right around us, but our rates are lower. So that kind of gives you some talking points, and we can do more research on that. But those were all things that I heard in the last meeting, and I felt was important that that you as a body sit and talk about before we start messing with numbers in the budget. Because you move one number and it probably affects 3 or 4 different sheets. So that's kind of why I didn't move forward with making a whole lot of changes. So it's open for discussion. Kelly?
Comments?
Yeah, Susan, I really appreciate the extra stuff that you pulled in here because, I mean, there are some things that do absolutely stand out to me. I know at the last budget workshop, there was concerns about people on limited incomes, maybe not even using a lot of water, that, would have these additional infrastructure fees that are tacked on there. If there's another avenue that we can go down that will help spread that out a little bit more, for that. Additionally, if we have the ability, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'd have to actually do a resolution, even if it was for 1 year, to do an infrastructure move from sewer to water.
Yes.
To help take care of what may be the worst of the 2 issues we have right now. That's something I'd be willing to look at as well. Again, to me, it comes down, and I think it was Josh that actually brought it up. I was on the TV, that the putting another $20 to $30 a month on people's water bill when you're a retiree living in a house by yourself that maybe isn't even using that much water. If there's another way to do that and spread that out, and I think Susan did a great job tonight of highlighting what they would pay. Well, I know the last infrastructure fee that went in, I know we lowered the mill rate, which was a little bit of a savings for single families, but just on the $10 fee alone, that was $120 a year, which may have been above what they would have paid for an increased mill rate. So like I said, want to do what's fair for everybody. I really like what she's put together, and I definitely would like to hear what other members of the commission feel about what she's provided.
So the first thing I would like to have everyone take a look at is this sheet I had Diane print up for everybody. So one of the things we were talking about in the last meeting is the amount of water that we are currently losing through our linking pipes. So if you'll look there on the first sheet, the average, we are running about a 20.7% loss on the water that we're losing through the currently leaking pipes. So for every $100,000 that we spend on chemicals, $20,000 of that's going straight into the ground. For every $100,000 we spend on people preparing the water down at the water plant, $20,000 of that's going in the ground. So you can pretty much take the amount of money that we're spending in our water department, and 20% of that we're throwing right out the window because we're not repairing these leaking pipes.
I would ask just a quick
Yes,
question. In the consumption not billed, does that include our City of Fort Scott water meters?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
This, yeah. And it fluctuates up and down. Some months when we have the bad leaks and they've been digging up the major pipes, we have a lot more loss during those months. But on average,
What column are you talking about? The
Column 6.
because so I thought you were talking about, but you're referring to column 8, aren't you, on the 20?
I'm referring to column 8 at the bottom, the average amount of water that
So
we're.
what is column 8 altogether here? What are we looking at?
It is so basically, I had one of the guys at the water department help draw this up. What we've done is we've taken the amount of water that we're producing at the water plant and then the amount of water that we're selling and running a comparison on those two numbers.
This isn't a complete document, though.
No, this only shows water loss.
So the column 8, the percentages, what is that a percentage of? What is that?
That's a percentage of the amount of water that we have lost during that month.
So how
But how's
do
August?
we lose
How-
97%?
yeah. And
Okay.
it's not even,
This is only for January, February, March, April.
I don't
Because
know.
That's
those
not
are
an
the
average.
those are the only numbers.
Talking about 2022.
Yeah, we're talking about this year only.
Yeah, but I don't think column 8 is a water loss ratio.
It is.
Then go through 2020 and 2021. How do we have a negative numbers?
this can't be right.
These are the reports that are sent into the state. Correct. Okay? How you get a negative report is basically your meters aren't accurate. Right? What it's doing is reporting everything the meter has for being sold or used, such as the city doesn't actually pay, but you still have a meter reading. And so that's the column there that says consumption not billed. And so that's all the consumptions added up versus the water plant meter saying how much it produced. What's left over should be, I mean, there's always something.
So it's not necessarily a leakage rate. It could also be a bad meter or something.
Right.
When
Yes.
you have negative
Yeah.
numbers, it means.
The meter has
probably
gone
have
bad.
Meters that are misreading, whether it's,
So
whether it's,
yeah.
you know, your residential meters, when they get old, they misread. Commercial do the same thing. Hey. So sometimes you do get negative numbers. The other thing is it comes off of your meters, depending on where they're reading it, it should come off the treatment plant. And there's a loss between what's pumped in versus what goes to the treatment plant. So, you know, you're always going to have somewhere between 5 and 10% loss. That's just typical for any city because you have water breaks, you have just basically meters aren't perfect.
Consumption not billed.
And so you're never going to end up with everything. So you do get negative numbers sometimes. So don't get too carried away with the fact that there's some negative numbers. And some types it's nothing more than a typo.
But shouldn't column 6, consumption not billed, be more accurate than the percentage?
Well, that's percentage is what the state looks at.
Okay, because if
And
I'm
so
looking
the
at
state always figures a percentage.
if I'm looking at consumption not billed, it's actually dropped from 2020.
Well, consumption not billed is your, whoever you have meters on, but you don't build. City hall, all your city facilities. Yeah, and I don't know if,
So
who
leak-
else you don't bill.
So leakage wouldn't be in the
No,
consumption not bill?
those
Okay.
numbers are from meters normally that you do not bill. Because otherwise you wouldn't have a number. That's still consumption. That's still being metered somehow. And it may be off of your water dock. Those usually aren't greatly accurate.
So, I don't know, let me. Yes. I want to show you a report, and this is true what is billed and not billed, what comes through,
Our monthly reporting for the utility.
And again, these are just for the first 4 months of this year because they haven't
Yeah.
got the numbers back on
This
what's
is
been
the
sold
extend, right?
from the city on the additional months to be able to run the extra.
So is it
I
true
mean, it
from,
would be a good question for your water
from January to February, we lost
department as
100
to
and,
why these 4 months are so much higher than the other years.
I don't think this number's right.
It seems like January seems to be a really high month every year. And why that is, I don't know.
how'd we lose 140 meters, customers from January to February?
How do you lose?
140 in 1 month.
You shut the
Whenever-
meters off because they don't pay you.
I'm just looking at the track record and we don't ever lose 10 in just 1 month. It's 140 and then all of a sudden it's back to 5, 6, 7.
We never lose 140. There's no way that we shut off 140 meters in a month.
well, and I can show you that right here, customers billed. Now, I don't have May, June, and July in here because I haven't received them yet. This shows you, this report here comes directly from our billings. And so customers billed, you can see we have it from 17-18 clear up to 2022. And so we try to keep track of this on a monthly basis so that if something happens, so you can kind of see down here, consumption not billed, there was 12 million. And so I immediately sent that out to them and said, what's going on here? Why are we having a large consumption there? And so this is how we monitor what's going on within our billing system.
And our meters.
And our meters to see if we have any dead meters. Up above this report, it shows our high-end users, and so we know if something's going on with the meter. And those are the ones that we really want to pay attention to, our high-end users. But this gives you a better idea of like city meters, what's not billed. It's actually going through a meter, but it's not billed. This is what. So if you look at what they're processing, and I would assume that that's what this raw water is, that's what they're processing. Minus what's actually billed, which is the 38 million, like on 2017, and the 325, then that would truly give you your water loss. And so I would want to look at those numbers all together. I can probably do let me do a January's real quick.
So we've been changing out meters over the last several years, and as we're becoming more accurate on our meter readings, we're seeing a greater loss of water, meaning we've probably been losing this water the whole time, but because our meters have been inaccurate, we're not having a good track on the amount of water that we're losing. What I wanted to point out to everybody is that we're running on an average right now of 20.7% water loss.
Yeah, but I
When-
think, I mean, I'm sure we're losing some water out there because I've seen the leaks myself.
Mhm.
But in lieu of some of how this information is listed on here,
What number's
I have no
right?
doubt we're losing some,
Mhm.
but I can't really trust a number that says 20.7% on there without knowing
That's fine.
these
This-
other outliers that are out there.
This number right here that's on this sheet is
Uh-huh.
the number that the state of Kansas is going to trust over any other number that you give them. This number on this calculation on this sheet is what we have to turn into the state on our water loss. And right at 20% is where the state gets very interested.
And we're positive that what the city is using is being accounted for what's not being lost.
What it proves, Tim, I think we're trying to push the train uphill, but what it proves is the need for change. We need to probably repair quite a few lines, and we need to change meters. We need to check into anything that's not registering water. There's a lot of need out there is what that bottom line proves. that is basically, what that proves is lost revenue. Okay, that's all, that's what we're trying to prove, is the need for change in those. Because if we can recoup that, think of how that will help your budget, is all we're trying to do.
Yeah, coupled with the fact if we continue to increase in our water loss, then the state's gonna get involved and demand that we make changes.
I guess I'm confused how 1 month can go negative 2.5, then to 26%, then to 1.4. I guess I'm confused on how it can fluctuate 3 months that much on water loss usage in 2021. That's why this report to me just seems a little weird. That's a huge jump. Then from 15 to -2 back to 11.
I'm not as concerned with 2021 and 2020. I'm concerned with our current loss of water.
Well, I am too, but I don't
Right
think,
now.
I think if you're looking at historical data, that this report doesn't show that historical data that you're saying.
Your billing numbers for 2022 isn't correct.
I don't know what this report, I don't know.
It says 3327, and on our report, we're billing.
It's right.
Oh, I'm looking at
It's in March. I was in the wrong column,
Okay.
but I don't know why there was a drop there.
So
I would have to
regardless,
ask. Yeah.
if you guys want to contact the guys at the water department, they'll do a better job of explaining this than I can, because I don't work for the water department. I'm simply reporting the fact that we are continuing to lose water daily. We're throwing money out the window, we're wasting time, we're wasting resources, and we're going to reach that point, if we don't do something about it soon, where the state's going to come in and force our hand. Then we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to take out a bunch of bonds and do a bunch of repairs all at the same time and put ourselves in further debt. We have an opportunity right now as the city to be proactive in the repair of these water lines. We have the opportunity to be proactive in placing the new water mains that need to go in on State and on 6th Street to be able to provide a decent water supply to our residents that live on the east side of town, who right now are struggling to get water. One guy has reported to me he's getting less than 3 gallons per minute flow at his house, and that's because where his house is located is on the far northeast corner of town, and the only water that we're able to supply from the east side of town right now is coming from the southern end of town, because we have to valve off the one at 6th Street because it's completely broken, and we were losing too much water through it, and the connection here at 3rd Street has not been made until we can run the 12-inch line down 12th Street. So we are not doing it justice to our customer. We're
Didn't
not
we already
providing.
approved those projects though, that in the industrial park?
We don't have the money to fund them right now.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. Yes, we have approved these projects. We have said these need to be done. But what we have yet to do is find a way to get the money to the water department to be able to do the repairs. We have not been able to get them the money to repair the water lines that are leaking, or to do the one out at the industrial park, or the one at 6th Street, or the one on State Street. We have just approved that those need to be done. So right now, we need to figure out how we can get these guys the money.
Were we using ARPA funds for one of those? Was that for the
Industrial.
industrial park? Yeah, that's what
I think we have $1 million in water line projects this next year, don't we?
Yeah.
And then not counting the meter replacement, another 100,000. And then with meter replacements, we're at 1.4, 1.5 million in infrastructure and water replacement that we've set the book out in 2023 or 22 and 23. We
Susan,
have-
am I reading this one statement backwards here? Should it be $100,000 transfer from the water fund to the general fund, or from the general fund to the water fund?
Right now, it's scheduled to be 100,000 transfer from the water fund to the general fund
Yeah.
to help support the general
That's what
fund.
it's scheduled as.
I think what you're thinking about, Josh, is we were planning on CDBG money, and we're not sure about that. Well, when that reopens, whether that's 24.
Right, but we have what? I can't remember how much ARPA money we have.
600 and some thousand right now, give or take a little bit.
You have more than that.
We should have 600 each one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you'll have another 580.
So we should have almost $1 million in ARPA funds.
No, because you spent 200 of it, right?
I thought it was 580, so right at 800 to 900,000. Yeah.
And if we use the money that we've earmarked for out there at the industrial park, that project's going to eat up 600, about 580, 600,000 of it. 400 and something? Okay. So that leaves us with about that 580, 600,000 that we're
And
gonna
how
have.
much debt do we
between
have on the
something.
books right now for water projects that we spent in the past?
You have water, 2, 5. You got a lot, because you got that 4.9 million temp note that hasn't come on. You're gonna have debt roll off in 24, 22, 25, and 24. So 24, you're gonna have debt roll off of 485,000. In 2025, you'll have 2.1 million that'll be paid out through this period of time. Your annual payments are 435, 468. That's your annual payments.
So we have water debt, I mean, we've taken on water projects in the last few years, then 10 years. We have quite a bit of debt, right?
Yeah, but most of it's going to roll off. Your 4.9 is going to come on probably at the end of this year, I would assume.
We have been doing water projects as demanded. So when something breaks catastrophically, the water department's been doing the best they can to keep us up and going. My understanding is even some of those bonds that you're looking at are projects where we had a catastrophic failure and we did not have the money to do the repairs, so we had to take out a bond to get the money. I understand for years we've been stealing Peter to pay Paul, but at this point, from what I'm seeing, that Peter doesn't have any money left. So we have to figure out how to get some money into the water department to start doing these repairs. We have
A lot of your debt, Josh, came on in 2009 and 2012. The big one rolls off in 25. As Susan said, you're gonna have 129 roll off in 24, but that's gonna be rolled up in what we see in 2022, along with 2024 for the river intake. That's actually the first project that you've done in the last, taking out money out in the last 6 years. I think it started in 2018, that's why I'm saying 6, because it's been rolling for a while and we financed it this year.
Susan, if we did, and I'm just saying if we did look at moving the $10 fee per resolution for 1 year from sewer to water, what would that?
It generates about $300,000.
About $300,000
Mhm.
for the water.
Roughly.
the problem that you're going to run into there is that the citizens of this city have made it quite clear that the money that's in the sewer fund, the money that comes into the sewer, is not to be touched.
But they also didn't know we'd have a $5 million surplus in 1
Right.
year.
Yeah.
And so I
And
think
we have $6.5 million worth of emergency
always
repairs
gonna
that
have-
need
I'm just saying,
done
we
to the
put
sewer
a,
department.
we put a 1 cent sales tax on the citizens with the street infrastructure. And now we have a $5 million surplus. And we say that's not enough in the sewer and then the water. We know it's not enough. I mean, you're never going to have a town that doesn't need a street fixed, a water line fixed, a store. I mean, you're always going to have something. And so we can't do it all at once.
No, I'm not asking
mean-
you to do it all at once. I'm asking us to do something about the leaking
Right.
water pipes.
Well,
I'm asking us to do something that no other commission has done in the last at least 20 years from what I can see, which is start being
we
proactive.
appear to have some
on
adequate
this.
funds though in the sewer fund right now with
Well,
what's happened. But
From my understanding, and Mr. Earls can speak to this, we have more work that needs to be done in our sewer department currently than that money covers.
is it more important than the water department right now? The leaks?
If you ask Mr. Earls, he's going to say yes. If you ask
And
some
this
other
is the problem
engineers,
with the
they're going to say yes.
Anytime you get monies from heavens, as they say, then there's always a project that needs done. There's
Yeah.
always a project.
We
And
were
so-
talking about these projects back in January and February of this year.
Right.
Okay, but
The
what would
Davis
we
Lift
do?
Station,
Yeah.
all these others, we have crumbling concrete, we have waterways that are falling apart. So our sewer department, we are blessed right now to be able to do the projects that desperately need to be done in our sewer
I
department.
But
understand.
what would we do if we did not have $5 million in the
Then we would
street.
have to go out for bonds because we're gonna have to start repairing this stuff.
Yeah.
Sooner or later.
But
Is that correct?
Here's my only thing. Susan had this great thing of value of home 0 to 50,000. We lost 146 of those. And I can almost guarantee you a lot of that's because of rise in taxes, rise in sales tax, and people just can't afford it no more. And they're moving into low income housing, stuff like that. So when you talk about crumbling, I want to talk about crumbling infrastructure on houses and the poverty level. I mean, our poverty level is just keeps dropping and dropping, or raising the poverty level. And so we lost 146 houses in the 50,000. We have priced citizens out of not living in Fort Scott.
I'm not asking you to raise the mill levy.
Right.
My suggestion this whole time has been to do what every other municipality around us does, which is to have a set water fee that we charge, infrastructure meter fee. If you want to call it what the gas company and the electric company call it a fuel surcharge, because the price of gas has gone through the roof. When Evergy comes to you and says, hey, price of gas went up, price of our chemicals went up, we have to repair a bunch of stuff, and raises your price, they raise your price. You
Matthew,
either have
that's-
to pay it. I know.
that's
I know.
worse in our poverty town
Yes, and I
than
understand.
raising the mill levy. Because again, if I'm a senior citizen living on $800 a month,
From what he's
and I
saying,
got a fee last year, and I'm going to get another fee that's a set fee, whether I use as much water as anybody else or not. Look at last year. Susan had examples where, you know, that person with a mill levy increase based on their valuation of their home would have paid this amount, but they got hit with the set fee per month, and it was $120, which was more for the year than what they would have paid with a mill levy increase based on the valuation of their home.
well, if you guys decide that raising the mill levy is what is best, I might be able to be persuaded to do that.
Well, we're trying to find a way to compromise
And I-
across all
and I-
across all
and I
of these
understand
things. And, I mean, I've got another topic on here that I'd like to talk about. That's not going to be make me real
Right.
popular either. But
So I know people will get upset about this, but I also understand that we have a dedication to our citizens. The water department runs as a business. Right now, it is insolvent. We run at a loss every year. We're losing water, we're losing money, everything. And I love that we can provide water for our people. That is an extremely important thing to do. But we're doing it at a cost. We're losing money. It is a nonstop losing process. I'm not even asking us to break even in the business. I'm just asking us to be able to repair things that we desperately need to repair. And that's what people have asked me to do. And so I'm here as their voice to try to get this stuff fixed. And I understand that it's an uncomfortable position that we're in. I wish I could have gone back 25 years ago and been on the commission then and raised the rates the way they needed to be raised for 20 years accordingly. But unfortunately, we've been put in this position by previous administrations, and we're the ones that have to be proactive. We're the ones that have to make the hard decision to do what's right by our citizens. And that's what I see in the numbers. That's what I see in what needs to be repaired. I said we don't do the $100,000 transfer from water to general. I'm in favor of cutting off all salaries coming out of the water department and funneling all that money into repairs. But then you have to understand that those salaries that are coming out of the water department are people who work for the water department and do jobs for the water department. But other than that, if we're not going to either institute the infrastructure fee or do something else to get that money in there, I don't understand how we're going to have the money to do everything.
So where
And
would
if
the
you're-
salaries come from?
They come out of the water department. So
So if
they
you
are,
cut those off, then where do they come from?
then that would be up to the commission to decide where that money comes from. We'd have to pull it from somewhere else.
it would still
Why
come
would
out
you-
of the
Why
city
would you not
finances.
pay them out of the water department if they're used?
I'm
To
not,
pay
I'm not,
water
I'm not
employees.
saying we shouldn't. What I'm saying is we need the money in the water department to do the repairs. So if we can't do the $10 infrastructure fee, if we can't do something to get money in there, that's the only way we'll get the money to be able to do it. We will have to make some hard decisions one way or another. We are either going to have to cut some services, we're going to have to decide who doesn't get paid, or we're going to have to find a way to come up with the money. But what we can't do is what previous administrations have done and kick the can down the road and allow this town to crumble around us.
So for 1 year, what I'm asking you here
Mm-hmm.
is we've got $5 million sewer project.
Is what we're planning.
Yeah. Can we do $5 million worth of work in 2023 with that money? Get it all scheduled out and done?
And we should do at least a couple million worth.
A couple million's worth. See, my suggestion was in 1 year, and Susan said it amounted to about $300,000. Moving that over to help. We've already got almost $1 million to do
And-
water jobs this year. Another 300,000 in there, but I don't think, Matthew, that we could hire and contract and get $5 million worth of sewer work done in 2023.
No. So we're,
There is an ordinance in place that does not allow us to take the money out of the sewer fund. We would have to
But-
write
Be
a
a
new
resolution.
charter
But the
ordinance.
We're
infrastructure,
not taking it out.
we're
of
not
there.
taking out, we put the infrastructure on there when we thought that fund was hurting, and now it's not hurting. So we're really doing the citizens injustice by charging them that fee when we have an excess of money in that account we didn't know we would have by, and it's not just a little bit, it's,
It's a regular ordinance, so
Yeah.
that regular ordinance can be changed, is what he's trying to say.
and this ordinance, I think, was even after the vote.
Yes, it was.
So,
Right. I understand what you're saying, Josh. I'm understanding that. But let's look at it like a car driving down the road. Okay, so we know that the engine needs to be rebuilt. The engine's falling apart, it's leaking oil all over the place. This thing's going to blow up any minute. Suddenly, we get some money in to fix the engine. Praise God, I've got money to fix the engine. Oh no, I got one bald tire. Well, let's take the engine money and let's replace all the tires on the car, because the tires need to be replaced, of course. And then we can't repair the engine. So we're still in the same place we are. So yes, we have been blessed to have the money to do the needed repairs to our sewer infrastructure that need to be done. In fact, well, we're still 1.5 million short from the needed repairs in our sewer. So we've been blessed. Why would we take that money that needs to be spent on the sewer department and spend it somewhere else when we're still going to have to repair the stuff in the sewer department? Because then the engine breaks, and now we got a car with 4 really nice tires, but it can't drive anywhere because we spent the money we should have spent on the engine.
I think the analogy was a little, because here's why. We do a business analogy because I have 12 customers and now I'm going to have 8 because 4 of them are pissed off because now their car is 15,000 instead of 10,000 because I raised the cost of it. So we're losing vendors every day because our taxes are high. So we're losing business customers every day, people moving out of town. And so I know the water bad and everything, but we got to find a way to not lose customers. And so I think we got to find an even. We're spending a lot of money on stormwater, a lot of money on sewer, a lot of money on streets, and we're doing an ample amount on water. I think we just got to worry about losing vendors as well.
Like I said, I'm not wanting to take the $5 million that's there for sewers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying with the money we already have available in the ARPA funds and the projects we have on the books, looking at $300,000 to help get some of the water stuff done. And yeah, I would encourage, as far as sewer work goes, full steam ahead with what you can actually get done in 2023 and planning projects out.
You could have almost $1.5 million in projects with the ARPA funds, what you have in cash reserves, or what you have in capital improvements, and with that 300,000.
But again, I don't think it's fair to put another infrastructure fee across the board, a flat fee, especially when you look at what the valuation of some of these homes did in the county tax appraisal. You know, it's going to be like, great, they just told me my home's worth less, but obviously the water's worth a lot because I'm getting another fee added to it.
Yeah. Well, and it's a decision that everyone has to make. I know that if you go to any other city around us, that their water costs more than our water because they are doing the work that
What
needs
about
to
their
be done.
taxes?
Hmm?
What about their taxes compared to ours?
They're two different things.
Yeah.
You can't,
No, they're both revenues for the city.
but you got to run your utilities as a business. So I hate that. That's frustrating when you have the tax conversation because you have to be able to support your utility. It's a business, so you have to run it like a business. Your taxes are a completely different. It's a service to the community, and so you have to. I guess you kind of have to look at them in a two different perspectives. You can't pool them together. Can you get some money from the taxes to help with your utility? Absolutely. Can you get money from the utility to help with the taxes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you still need to be able to support your utility. And right now, he's right. We're either flat or losing money every year. and really losing money when you have the water loss.
Yes. Would you mind if I moved on to something else
go
for a
ahead.
minute here? As I know that we're going to be up against a hard stop for the commission meeting. The 5% increase for employees, I will tell you, I greatly value our employees in the city. I did do some checking on it. I do know that last year we provided some pretty nice perks and benefits to the employees as well. And I hope that they're enjoying all of them. I also talked to the county to see what they were doing for the county employees, as well as checked a few other cities. And I know that good employees are hard to hang on to, but actually the national average, and this is going to be a high end year, even across corporate America for increases that are given, is at about 4%. So could you tell me if we actually change that from 5 to 4% as a whole, what we
Yeah.
would save?
Yeah, I did some calculations on that. You'll save 1 mil in the general fund, and everywhere else is going to be just a savings, so additional funding.
Yeah.
But your general fund is the biggest one where you're going to see savings.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
5% was what,
so-
140,000?
So I had to do calculations based on last year's budget numbers. And so that's where my numbers come from, because I didn't have, when I received the wages, I just had the 5% already built in. So I just compared it to what was budgeted for last year. And so that's about roughly $50,000, 49.
I mean, just something for everyone to think about. I mean, it is a mill. It is, even in line with,
It's somewhere between 50 and 60,000 for 1%.
Yeah.
So you're only gonna save about, so if you shave 1% off, you're gonna save maybe at the most somewhere in benefits and wages, 60,000.
in benefits and wages. Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thanks for getting that.
Yep.
That's something to
So
think about.
one of the things in answer to your question, Matthew, is hopefully the blessing of the ADM state, that's what Pete and I and Earls are engineering long-term, is to be able to absorb the I&I water, the infiltration water into the Lagoon One, where we're stable in our plant and we can keep taking that commercial waste. So if that's the case, then we're gonna stay pretty solvent in sewer, which is nice. Now, the one thing you wanna consider, and I want our people on watching YouTube to hear this, is that we start stacking up too much money, we're not gonna get any fund relief. So, sometimes it's nice not to have too much, because then you're not gonna get the benefit. Actually, what's happened to the city in and of itself is also kind of somewhat coming out of a poverty situation. So as we move that water, that infrastructure from sewer to water, that lowers our reserve. And those are reserves that we have to report when we ask for fund relief or what you call project forgiveness with the SRF for any of those things, in the same way as CDBG. So the other thing is you want to make sure that you're leveraging, I don't want to use this term, you're levering all of your funds throughout the entirety of your budget, and not just in one place as a reserve, because it could be a penalty for you, is the thing. And the state will look at that, and Pete Hurls can speak into this better than I can, and they'll say, you got money, why are we helping you? So that's why bringing that over is probably the smartest thing we can do. Now, if we need other money, then we need to look at that to do the things you're saying. We may need money beyond that 300,000. This year we'll have ARPA things. Next year we may have to look at that.
Yeah.
So,
Is debt falling off here in 24?
well, that debt's gonna re-up, unfortunately. So as we rebond that river intake, there's no new money coming in.
I've kind of forgotten government, it's always going to re-up no matter what, so.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, year by year, you look at that, but you look at, once again, back to that term, leveraging everything you can to your benefit. And so that's why I wanted to say that for the folks watching. We also want to make sure that we can be a recipient of state funds as well as, and grant monies for matching and things like that. So that's why we will carry that to start with, and then hopefully as we apply for the SRF, we can get that urgent need status.
And I'm not a fan of raising anybody's taxes for that matter. I think that hurts our community. But again, with the situation that we're in, there's no way I could in good conscience support another fee being assigned to water unless, you're going to put a gate and barbed wire up around City Hall down here because people were not happy about the last one. People have called me and showed me their water bills. If there's other means of doing it, the folks that elected us, I would rather try and approach those avenues to do it as opposed to just saying, oh, guess what? You got 10 this year, you get 12 or 15 or 20 more added on next year every single month.
Were you suggesting not giving 5% raises, giving less?
I was
next year?
suggesting 4%. And that's what's predicted on the highest end nationally. I mean, you can go out there and look at it.
What I would suggest is you put it in there, if you need it, you have it, if you don't use it. That's what I suggest.
Yeah.
Because if it goes to 10% and over for inflation like we're talking about, just have the leverage room. If worst case scenario, it stays in the general fund. I mean, it's not a bad thing and we need to bump our cash position anyway in the general fund.
So are we anywhere closer after today?
No.
Well, you know my thoughts from last meeting, so.
I do.
And you know my thoughts.
You have to vote on it in your meeting to either make a resolution to the ordinance or change the ordinance. So you can't decide that in this venue. But you are closer as to understanding where you might want to take that money from. Because money does need to be moved somewhere to water or generated somewhere for water to do projects. So at least that much.
Actually, that piece of it, in addition to just one other thing on here, I think is really the only thing we got left to resolve.
And a lot of that's going to actually, what you do in the open meeting is, and what you vote on so that you can fund the water fund. Now we can put it in there, but you're still going to have to decide that and determine that through the resolution and ordinance.
So I think just talking points real quick, the main thing so far we're talking about is the ordinance from the sewer to the water is one thing. I know we've talked about, I've asked a little bit more from Bourbon County Ready and using also first source money to drop it to revenue neutral to pay back. And then Tim's asked for to drop the, look at 4%.
Look at 4%.
And then I don't know what else we need to think about.
If you do the 4%, you'll get close to revenue neutral, or you
Oh,
build it
and
into
then-
your cash reserves.
And then the land bank's the other thing that we need to.
Well, I thought we were
No,
done
you
with the land
just-
bank.
You just said that
Thought
you're
they were
going to
moving
exceed it.
50,000.
They don't have to exceed it.
Well, I don't know. I know that was put on there, but I don't think no one's ever decided about the 50,000 on the land bank in an actual meeting. So,
Well,
Oh,
I didn't
I-
hear any objections.
didn't
so I
either.
assumed it was okay.
and then I saw this one. Maybe I was just glancing. What's the 111,000? I don't know where I was seeing that a minute ago. Too many papers.
It would have been in that.
This is that. This is that. Here it is.
We got a lot of paper before.
What do you
this.
think
Here
it
we go.
what?
What is? And I just glanced. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, let me pull your detail out. It's probably carryovers and fees. So the fee, you only have a half of a year to capture fees in 22, and you'll have a full year to capture fees in 23 if you make this implementation now. So that's why there's an increase.
So what's the 79,000 in 2022?
So they were anticipating they would get some fees in this year, and the 50
Oh,
and
okay.
10.
Okay. So that's what they're generating also.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So like I said the other week, I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want a fee. I want us to fix the things that need fixed right now. And I want us to appropriate the money within the budget for the water department, for the sewer department, to be able to do all the repairs that we need to do right now. If we can find that money somewhere else, I am perfectly happy getting that money wherever we can get it. But I don't want to shortchange an opportunity that we have right now to get the needed repairs done. We have the manpower to do these projects. We have guys in-house who can be working on changing out these water lines. We just need to get them the money to be able to do this work.
I mean, I agree
Really
with
have
you.
the manpower though
Yeah.
to
That's,
do these kind of
I
projects?
just want you.
if you talk
just-
to Bill Lipke and the guys, they say that,
I
yes,
just, when you
they,
factor in infrastructure, I just really want you to factor in us fixing the tax problem as well.
the what?
The tax problem as well. So when you talk about water, streets, and stormwater, I really want the fixed taxes be right up on that high priority as water lines. So that's, I mean, I know we're in a tough spot.
We are.
So,
But I do think, though, that if we look at what we were doing from sewer to water for that amount of money, that there's no way we could pull and schedule and contract $5 million worth of jobs in 2023.
Devin, was sales tax up again this month? Or was it pretty flat? It's still up.
So, Madam Mayor, can we take a break before we start the next meeting here in 3 minutes?
Are we having another work session, I assume? I know we'll have we have the R&R hearing next week, and then we plan to have another work session on the 30th.